Our history books might be missing their first few chapters. Beneath the familiar tales of pyramids and empires lies evidence of advanced civilizations that thrived before the last ice age, societies erased by a global cataclysm. By the end of this journey, you will see the entire timeline of human history in a completely new light. We will explore mysterious structures built with impossible precision and ancient maps that chart a world without ice. How did these cultures achieve so much, and what ultimately caused their disappearance? What does it mean for our own future if great societies can simply vanish? What forgotten story of human potential are we only just beginning to uncover? 12,000 years ago, our world was a different place. Vast ice sheets, some over a mile thick, blanketed entire continents, locking away enormous volumes of water and lowering global sea levels by hundreds of feet. Then, with startling speed, this frozen world began to unravel. The climate, which had been locked in a deep chill, underwent a violent reversal. Temperatures in the North Atlantic region shot upward, rising by as much as 10 degrees Celsius in a single decade. This was not a gentle warming, but a planetary fever spike. This pivotal chapter is known to scientists as the Younger Dryas period, a time of profound and chaotic change. Think of the climate not as a steady rhythm, but as a record player suddenly skipping, jolting the entire system. The immense ice sheets, destabilized by the heat, began to collapse. This unleashed catastrophic floods of fresh water into the oceans, which in turn disrupted global ocean currents that regulate the planet's temperature. The result was a climatic roller coaster, a series of violent swings between warming and abrupt cooling that lasted for centuries. This upheaval had devastating consequences. Iconic creatures like the woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed cat, and the giant ground sloth, which had thrived for millennia, vanished from the earth. For the human societies of that era, the impact was equally profound. Any communities established along the vast, now subcontinental shelves would have faced a relentless, rising tide. Shorelines retreated not by inches per year, but by miles in a generation. The very lands where people lived, fished, and built their homes were swallowed by the sea. This global cataclysm provides the essential backdrop for our entire investigation. It explains why the evidence for any advanced culture predating this event is not lying in plain sight, but is instead fragmented, submerged, and incredibly difficult to find. The slate was not just wiped clean, it was scoured by ice, drowned by oceans, and buried under layers of silt and time. To even consider the possibility of a lost chapter in human history, we must first appreciate the sheer scale of this loss. This monumental event sets the stage for the mystery, making the clues we are about to uncover all the more remarkable. These clues begin with enigmatic structures, silent stones that stand in defiance of everything we thought we knew about the timeline of human achievement. These stone circles in Turkey are not merely old, they are anachronistic. Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE, sealed under a man-made hill for reasons we still do not understand. This act of interment preserved it, creating a time capsule that lay forgotten for millennia until its rediscovery. The sophistication of the construction is what truly baffles researchers. Enormous T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were quarried, transported, and erected with astonishing precision. The pillars are not rough-hewn rocks, they are smoothed and finished, set into sockets carved directly into the bedrock floor. This implies not just brute strength, but a deep understanding of geometry, engineering, and long-term project management. The carvings adorning these monoliths are another layer of mystery. They depict a menagerie of animals, from foxes and cranes to scorpions and lions, rendered with a fluid, artistic skill that feels far removed from simple survival. These are not crude scratches, they are a complex symbolic language, a narrative frozen in stone. Some researchers propose these carvings are more than decoration. They could be a primitive form of record-keeping, mapping constellations or commemorating celestial events. This suggests a society with shared beliefs, a unified cultural identity, and possibly a priestly or shamanic class that directed such a colossal undertaking. The conventional story tells us that hunter-gatherers were incapable of such feats, that monument building only began after the invention of agriculture provided settled, stable communities. Göbekli Tepe turns that timeline on its head. It suggests that a compelling spiritual or intellectual drive may have come first, motivating people to come together and build, which in turn may have catalyzed the move toward settled life and farming. How could nomadic peoples have achieved this? The answer may be that our definitions of advanced are too narrow. A society does not need metal tools or written text to possess profound knowledge of stone, the stars, and social organization. Göbekli Tepe stands as a silent challenge, a testament to a forgotten chapter of human ingenuity. But if such a place could be built on land, what might have been constructed along the coastlines that were swallowed by the rising seas? Our search for answers now leads us from these sun-baked hills to the ocean floor, to a place shrouded in even deeper mystery. The legend of Dwarka feels like something straight out of myth, a golden city lost beneath the waves. Ancient Hindu texts describe it in vivid detail, a magnificent capital adorned with riches, a city of immense spiritual significance that ultimately sank into the ocean following the passing of its legendary king. For centuries, this was considered a powerful allegory, a story not to be taken literally. Then, marine archaeologists began to explore the waters off the modern coast of Gujarat in India. What they found there challenges the very boundary between legend and history. Scattered across the seafloor are the remains of massive stone structures. There are geometric walls that suggest a deliberate urban plan far beyond a simple settlement. Researchers have recovered stone anchors, the kind used by large seafaring vessels, and a wealth of pottery and artifacts. The construction techniques indicate a society that understood how to work with stone on a grand scale, creating fortified walls and foundations designed to last. When some of these materials are dated, the results are startling, pointing to a time frame that could stretch back thousands of years before many established ancient civilizations. This is not just the discovery of an old village, it is the potential footprint of a sophisticated maritime culture. The people of this place were not just living by the sea, they were mastering it. They possessed engineering knowledge for building a durable city and the navigational skills to sail the open ocean. The submergence of Dwarka is a perfect, tangible example of the global process we discussed earlier. Rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age did not just change coastlines, they erased entire chapters of human endeavor. A city like this, built at a time when the ocean was hundreds of feet lower, would have been perfectly positioned to be swallowed whole as the waters climbed. Its rediscovery offers a profound lesson that our planet's most dramatic changes can conceal our own past. But the mystery of lost civilizations is not confined to the old world. Far across the Pacific, another enigmatic structure lies submerged in the waters off Japan, presenting a puzzle that is equally compelling and just as difficult to explain. Beneath the clear, blue waters off the coast of Japan lies one of the world's most captivating underwater mysteries. The Yonaguni monument is a sprawling complex of massive stone terraces, walls, and platforms that descend into the ocean depths. To the trained eye, the formations appear anything but random. They feature sharp, straight edges near perfect right angles and what look unmistakably like staircases ascending the rock faces. One prominent structure even resembles a massive arch or gateway. The sheer scale is breathtaking, with the main terrace rising from the seafloor to a height comparable to a multi-story building. The central question is as profound as the monument itself. Is this an astonishing feat of natural erosion, or is it the work of human hands? Geologists point to the area's strong currents and the natural fracturing of sandstone to explain the formations. Yet other researchers argue that the combination of geometric features is too consistent, too deliberate to be purely natural. They point to what seem to be carved channels and ceremonial pools, elements that suggest a purpose beyond geology. If even a portion of this site was shaped by people, its implications are staggering. The monument rests at a depth that would have been dry land over 10,000 years ago during the last ice age. This timing places its potential construction in the same distant era as Göbekli Tepe, long before any known culture in the Pacific was thought to be capable of such stone-working prowess. This is not just a debate about rocks, it is a challenge to our entire narrative of human progress. The Yonaguni monument forces us to ask whether we have underestimated the seafaring and engineering abilities of ancient peoples. Could a sophisticated culture have existed in this region, one that built monumental structures on land now lost to the sea? The site remains an enigma, a puzzle resting in the silent deep, reminding us that our planet's greatest secrets may still be hidden by the waves. But if these submerged stones are so difficult to interpret, what other evidence could point to a lost world? Our investigation now turns from the depths of the ocean to the faded lines on ancient maps, charts that seem to depict a geography that should have been impossible for their creators to know. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis compiled a world map that defies easy explanation. This artifact, drawn on gazelle skin, is remarkable not just for what it includes, but for the stunning accuracy of features that should have been utterly unknown to the world of the 16th century. The map vividly details the eastern coast of South America with a precision that European explorers of the era had not yet achieved, yet its most baffling element lies far to the south. The map appears to depict a landmass at the bottom of the world, a continent we know as Antarctica, but this is not the frozen, ice-locked wilderness we recognize today. The Piri Reis map shows a coastline free of its immense glacial covering, a topography that has been hidden under miles of ice for thousands of years. How could a cartographer from the early 1500s have known this? Admiral Reis himself noted in the margins that his work was based on a collection of older source maps, some of which he described as dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. This admission opens a door to a staggering possibility. The map may be a copy of a copy, a faded echo of far more ancient geographical knowledge. The accuracy of the longitudinal lines and the shapes of the landmasses suggest the original surveyors possessed a sophisticated understanding of spherical trigonometry, a science that was supposedly lost for centuries after the classical era. This implies the existence of a seafaring culture with the ability to map the globe, a civilization that must have explored these coastlines when they were last free of ice, a time that places them squarely before the end of the last ice age. This single document is a cartographic ghost, a whisper of a world as it existed over 12,000 years ago. It suggests that advanced knowledge was not necessarily lost in a single cataclysm, but was perhaps fragmented, preserved in scattered libraries and charts that were later rediscovered and imperfectly pieced together by later cultures. The Piri Reis map stands as a testament not to the genius of its compiler, but to the unimaginable depth of the sources he drew upon. If such precise geographical data could be preserved through millennia, what other forms of technical understanding might have survived, only to be misunderstood as myth or magic by those who came after? This line of inquiry pulls us from the realm of maps and stones toward even more enigmatic artifacts, objects that seem to defy the very timeline of human invention. The Antikythera mechanism was recovered from a shipwreck not as a single object, but as a collection of corroded bronze fragments. For decades, it was dismissed as an unidentifiable curiosity. Then, painstaking analysis revealed the truth. This was an intricate mechanical computer. Its complex system of interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth cut with microscopic precision, could calculate the movements of the sun, the moon, and known planets. It predicted eclipses and even modeled the irregular orbit of the moon. This was not a simple calendar, it was a miniature model of the known universe, engineered over 2,000 years ago. The sheer sophistication is what stops historians in their tracks. A device of this complexity does not simply appear. It is the product of generations of accumulated knowledge, a pinnacle of a long technical tradition. The question that naturally follows is, what came before it? Where did the foundational ideas for such precise mechanical engineering originate? The mechanism itself feels like a relic from a different timeline, one where ancient Greek craftsmanship was applied to principles we would not see again until the mechanical clocks of the 18th century. This gap in the historical record is profound. It suggests the possibility that the device was not a singular invention, but a refinement, a surviving example of a technology that may have had much deeper roots. Could it be a scaled-down echo of a more advanced understanding of mechanics that existed in a forgotten era? This idea forces us to look at ancient texts not as pure myth, but as potential repositories of fragmented memory. Legends from various cultures speak of divine artifacts and impossible knowledge. The Greek myth of the lost island of Atlantis, described by Plato as an advanced civilization that sank beneath the waves, is the most famous example. For centuries, these stories were read as philosophical allegories, but what if they were something else? What if they were distorted accounts passed down through countless generations of a real cultural collapse? The cataclysm that ended the last ice age would have been the most traumatic event in human history, a global disaster that shattered societies and erased coastlines. The survivors would have carried with them only what they could remember, stories of a time when people built great cities and possessed wondrous devices. Over millennia, these accounts could have transformed into the myths we know today. The Antikythera mechanism then becomes a tangible bridge. It is a physical object that proves the ancients were capable of engineering marvels we never attributed to them. And if they could achieve this, perhaps the legends of even greater achievements from a time before the ice are not so far-fetched after all. This line of thinking does not just add a chapter to history. It suggests we might be reading from the middle of the book, entirely unaware of the epic story that came before. The search for that first chapter now leads us to a final, overarching theory, one that attempts to weave all these disparate threads into a single, compelling narrative. These ancient flood stories are far more than isolated legends. From the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical account of Noah, and from the Hindu tales of Manu to the flood myths of indigenous peoples in the Americas, the narrative is hauntingly consistent. A great deluge, divinely sent or naturally occurring, rises to cover the entire world, wiping away an earlier age of humanity and forcing a desperate struggle for survival. The sheer universality of this story is what commands our attention. How could cultures separated by vast oceans and impassable mountain ranges, peoples who supposedly had no contact with one another, all preserve the core memory of a world-ending flood? The most compelling explanation points to a shared traumatic experience, a cataclysm so profound it was seared into the collective memory of our species. The end of the last ice age provides the perfect geological backdrop for this global event. As the massive ice sheets melted, global sea levels rose by hundreds of feet, not slowly and steadily, but in a series of rapid, violent surges. For any human communities living along the continental shelves, this would not have been a gradual change. It would have been an existential crisis, a relentless encroachment of the ocean that swallowed their homelands in a geological instant. What we call myth may, in fact, be the oral history of those who witnessed this global transformation, the survivors who carried the story of the lost lands with them as they fled to higher ground. These stories were not mere fables about rain. They were accounts of a world remade, of coastlines disappearing and entire landscapes vanishing beneath the waves. The details may have been mythologized over thousands of years of retelling, with gods and heroes added to the narrative, but the central, terrifying event remains the same. This collective memory is a powerful form of evidence, a cultural echo of a real-world disaster that reshaped the planet. It suggests that our earliest stories are not pure invention, but are rooted in a deep, shared history of loss and resilience. When we listen to these flood myths today, we are not just hearing captivating stories, we are hearing the distant, faded voices of our ancestors, describing the single greatest event they ever witnessed. This link between global myth and geological reality offers a profound insight that the achievements of a lost age may be remembered not in stone but in story. Yet the question remains, is there physical proof in the earth itself to corroborate these ancient accounts? The ice itself holds a memory. In the pristine, silent expanses of Greenland and Antarctica, scientists drill deep into the ancient ice sheets, extracting cylindrical cores that are like frozen time capsules. These ice cores contain more than just compacted snow. They hold tiny, trapped air bubbles and layers of atmospheric dust, creating a year-by-year diary of our planet's climate stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. When researchers analyze these layers, they find a stark and dramatic entry dated to around 12,800 years ago. The data reveals a climate system lurching violently, with temperatures plummeting in the North Atlantic region in a geological heartbeat. This is the hard scientific evidence for the Younger Dryas period, a time when the world, which had been warming, was suddenly thrown back into a deep freeze that lasted for centuries. This was not a gentle seasonal change, it was a planetary shock. For any society existing at that time, the consequences would have been immediate and devastating. Growing seasons would have collapsed, water sources would have frozen, and familiar migratory patterns of animals would have been thrown into chaos. The geological record provides a tangible, physical framework for the catastrophe. It shows us that the environmental stress required to dismantle a civilization was not only possible, it actually happened. This scientific corroboration transforms the flood myths from mere stories into potential eyewitness accounts of a real, documented event. The ice cores tell us that the stage was indeed set for a global drama of loss and survival. This tangible evidence of a broken climate allows us to seriously consider the possibility of a forgotten chapter in the human story, a time when cultures with sophisticated knowledge were fractured by a world in upheaval. If such societies did exist, what other traces of their understanding might have survived? Their legacy may be found not in the earth but in the stars, encoded in the very stones they left behind. The stones themselves seem to speak a language of the cosmos, scattered across the globe, from the windswept plains of Salisbury to the arid sands of the Egyptian Sahara. Ancient structures stand as silent witnesses to a profound celestial understanding. Stonehenge, with its massive sarsen stones, is precisely aligned to frame the sunrise on the summer solstice. Far to the south, the stone circle of Nabta Playa, older than Stonehenge itself, marks not only the solstices but also the rising of specific stars. These are not random arrangements. The alignments are too accurate, too intentional to be the product of chance. They required generations of meticulous observation, a patient recording of the sky's slow dance across centuries. This points to a stable, organized society capable of preserving and passing down complex knowledge over immense stretches of time. How did these cultures develop such precise astronomical systems seemingly from scratch? Some researchers propose a startling possibility that this wisdom was not invented but inherited. The foundational work of mapping the heavens may have been accomplished by a much older civilization, one that had millennia to watch the stars and decipher their cycles. This pre-existing celestial knowledge, fragmented and carried by survivors of a great cataclysm, could have provided the seed from which all later astronomical traditions grew. The enduring stones are not just calendars, they are monuments to a continuum of understanding, a chain of wisdom that was nearly broken by planetary upheaval. If our ancestors could preserve such intricate knowledge of the skies, what other forms of sophisticated understanding might they have possessed? This line of inquiry leads us from the open-air observatories to the depths of the Earth, where evidence of another kind of advanced activity has been unearthed. Deep within the mountains of southern Africa lies a different kind of ancient mystery. The Ngwenya mine is a vast, scarred landscape of terraced cliffs and deep, shadowed shafts cutting into the rock face. This is not a recent excavation. It is one of the oldest known mining sites on Earth, with evidence of systematic iron ore extraction dating back over 40,000 years. This timeline is staggering, placing these mining activities in an era we have long considered the domain of simple hunter-gatherers. The scale of the work implies something far more organized than a few individuals scratching at the surface. These were large-scale operations that required coordinated labor, planning, and a clear objective. The miners needed to identify the richest ore deposits, devise methods to break the hard rock, and establish systems to transport the material. This level of effort suggests a society with specialized roles, where some members focused on the complex task of procurement, while others supported the endeavor. What were they doing with all this ore? The conventional timeline tells us that smelting iron to create metal tools only began a few thousand years ago. Yet here, tens of thousands of years earlier, people were systematically gathering the raw material. Perhaps they were using the red ochre for ceremonial purposes, for art, or for early forms of trade that wove together distant communities. The existence of such a mine hints at an economic network, a web of resource distribution that challenges our simplest models of prehistoric life. This was not mere subsistence, this was industry. It reveals a capacity for long-term project management and an understanding of geology that we rarely attribute to our most ancient ancestors. A society capable of organizing labor on this scale must have had a stable foundation. How did they feed the workers who toiled in these mines? This question of sustenance naturally draws our attention from the depths of the earth to the potential fields that may have fed them. The story of humanity's greatest revolution is written not in stone but in soil. The conventional timeline tells us that around 10,000 years ago, our ancestors independently discovered farming in several parts of the world, a sudden shift we call the Neolithic Revolution. This transition from foraging to agriculture is presented as the pivotal moment that allowed for settled life, surplus food, and the eventual rise of cities. Yet, scattered clues suggest this revolution may not have been a spontaneous invention, but a rediscovery. At sites like Oholo II in Israel, archaeologists have found evidence of grass seed gathering and even early grain processing that dates back an astonishing 23,000 years. This is not full-scale farming, but it reveals a sophisticated understanding of wild plants, a kind of experimental proto-agriculture that flourished long before the last ice age ended. Imagine a society with this knowledge, learning to selectively sow and tend the most productive grasses. They could have supported larger, more stable communities than we ever imagined for that era. Then the climate chaos of the Younger Dryas struck. The very ecosystems they were learning to manage would have been thrown into turmoil, the careful work of generations wiped out by freezing temperatures and shifting weather patterns. This scenario offers a compelling explanation for the so-called revolution that occurred millennia later. When the climate finally stabilized, the survivors, holding fragmented memories of that lost knowledge, could have rekindled the practice. The simultaneous emergence of farming in the Fertile Crescent, China, and the Americas around 10,000 years ago might not be a series of independent miracles, but the widespread revival of a much older idea. The roots of agriculture appear to delve deep into a forgotten age, a testament to knowledge lost and found again. This emerging picture of sophisticated pre-Ice Age societies is further illuminated by the art they left behind, images that speak a complex symbolic language across the millennia. These ancient galleries are hidden deep within the earth, far from the light of day. In the profound silence of caves like Chauvet in France or Ling Tedong in Indonesia, the walls come alive with a breathtaking menagerie. Herds of horses and bison seem to gallop across the stone, their forms captured with an artistic mastery that feels both ancient and timeless. Alongside these lifelike animals are countless handprints, created by blowing pigment around a hand pressed to the rock, and a proliferation of abstract symbols, dots, lines, and zigzag patterns that recur across continents. For a long time, we interpreted these images as simple records of the hunt or early attempts at decoration. But what if we have been underestimating them? The consistency of these symbols across tens of thousands of years and vast geographical distances is a powerful clue. A specific zigzag line found in a cave in France appears again with the same meaning in a rock shelter in Indonesia. This is not a coincidence. It suggests a shared symbolic vocabulary, a system of communication that may have transcended language barriers. Some researchers now propose that these are not random doodles, but the foundational elements of a proto-writing system. Just as the dots and dashes of Morse code can convey complex messages, these repeated geometric shapes could have represented concepts, marked territories, or told stories essential to the culture that created them. This changes everything. It implies that our ancestors were not just artists, they were storytellers and intellectuals, capable of abstract thought on a scale we rarely attribute to them. The tragedy is that any true writing system they might have developed would have been on perishable materials, wood, bark, or animal hides, all of which would have turned to dust long ago. The cave paintings are what remain, the indestructible skeleton of a much richer cultural body that has otherwise completely vanished. They are a cryptic code left for us, a permanent record of a complex mind. This artistic legacy, so deeply spiritual in its execution, points toward a unified system of beliefs that may have connected humanity long before our recorded history began. These ancient ceremonial sites speak a shared language of stone and spirit. Across the globe, from the massive, corbelled temples of Malta to the animal-adorned pillars of Göbekli Tepe, we find echoes of the same profound human impulses. Our ancestors, separated by vast continents, were independently constructing monuments that honored the same fundamental concepts: a deep reverence for ancestors, a careful observation of celestial cycles, and a perceived connection to the animal world. This is more than a coincidence. It is a pattern etched into the very foundations of human civilization. The construction of such sites required something extraordinary, a level of social cohesion that transcends simple survival. To quarry, transport, and erect multi-ton stones, a society must possess a unified vision, a shared belief system powerful enough to motivate collective labor over generations. This indicates not just organization, but a sophisticated cultural identity, one capable of planning for a future its builders might never see. The recurring motifs suggest these spiritual ideas may not have sprung up independently in isolated pockets, but could instead be the scattered branches of a single ancient root. Imagine a foundational worldview, a system of beliefs about life, death, and the cosmos that was carried by the survivors of a great cataclysm as they migrated across the world. Over millennia, these core ideas would have adapted to new environments and evolved into the diverse religions we recognize today, yet their original symbolic heart would remain, visible in the universal language of their oldest temples. This spiritual unity stands in stark contrast to the thousands of languages that now separate humanity. It prompts a haunting question: if our earliest sacred sites share such a common vocabulary, could they also hint at a time when humanity itself shared a common tongue, or at least a core set of mythic stories that were carried to every corner of the globe? The stones they left behind are not just places of worship, they are the silent scripture of a lost world, urging us to listen to the echoes of a story we have only just begun to understand. The words we speak today may carry faint echoes from a world long vanished. Linguists have painstakingly reconstructed proto-languages, the ancient roots from which vast language families grew. Proto-Indo-European, for instance, is a theorized tongue spoken over 5,000 years ago, the common ancestor of languages from English and Hindi to Greek and Russian. But what if this itself was not the beginning of the story? Some researchers propose that these proto-languages are not original sources, but are themselves the scattered descendants of a far more ancient, and perhaps even universal, mother tongue. This idea emerges from puzzling similarities found across language families that are supposedly unrelated. Certain core words, like those for mother or father, often share a striking resemblance across the globe. Even more compelling are the underlying structural rules, the shared grammatical blueprints that appear in widely separated cultures. How could such complex and specific patterns arise independently, again and again, unless they were all drawing from a common foundational source? The collapse of a global civilization at the end of the last ice age provides a compelling context for this fragmentation. As survivor populations were driven apart by rising seas and climatic chaos, their once unified language would have quickly diverged, evolving over millennia into the bewildering variety we see today. The search for this ancestral language is not just an academic exercise, it is an attempt to hear the ghost of a conversation that began before the ice receded. This linguistic detective work connects directly to another line of evidence, one written not in words but in the very bones of our ancient ancestors. The bones we unearth tell their own silent, stubborn story. In the arid landscapes of coastal Peru, the Paracas skulls present a mystery that science is still unraveling. These are not ordinary human remains. Their craniums are dramatically elongated, stretching back in a smooth, tapered curve that defies typical human anatomy. For years, the conventional explanation was cultural modification, the deliberate shaping of an infant's soft skull with boards and bindings, a practice known in many ancient societies. Yet when genetic analysis was performed on some of these Paracas specimens, the results were unexpected. The DNA showed mutations unknown in any other human, primate, or animal. suggesting a lineage that may have diverged from our own far back in the deep past. This does not necessarily point to aliens or mythic beings, but it powerfully hints at a forgotten branch on the vast human family tree, a group that may have developed in isolation for millennia before vanishing from the historical record. Their very biology seems to be a relic of a different world. Similar enigmas surface across the globe, from the discovery of unusually large skeletal remains in various regions to fossils that simply do not fit the established timeline. Carbon dating of such finds occasionally places them in periods that challenge our understanding of human migration and development. What if these are not mere outliers, but tangible evidence of populations that thrived before the great climate catastrophe of the Younger Dryas? A society with advanced knowledge would not be limited to stone and astronomy. Their understanding might have extended to the principles of biology itself. Could selective breeding or other sophisticated practices have led to the distinct physical traits we see in these remains? The notion reframes these skeletons from curiosities into potential clues. They are biological artifacts hinting at cultural experimentation and diversity that was lost when their world was swept away. When we hold one of these elongated skulls, we are not holding a monster, we are holding a question. The true significance may lie less in their strange shape and more in what they represent, the incredible diversity of human experience that has been erased by time and cataclysm. These physical remains force us to confront a profound possibility, that the human story is far richer and more complex than a simple, linear progression from primitive to advanced. The silent testimony of bone and tooth complements the silent language of standing stones and star maps, weaving together a narrative of a deep past that is only now beginning to whisper its secrets to us. These curious objects seem to defy the very timeline they were unearthed from. Among the most famous is the Baghdad Battery, a simple clay jar found in the ruins of an ancient Mesopotamian city. Inside it, a copper cylinder houses an iron rod, and if filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, it can produce a small electrical charge. To a modern eye, it looks like a primitive galvanic cell. While its exact purpose remains debated, one compelling theory suggests it was used for electroplating, applying a thin layer of gold or silver onto other metals. This implies a working, if rudimentary, grasp of electrochemistry 2,000 years ago. How did such a concept emerge in a world we thought was powered by muscle and fire? The answer may not lie in a sudden, isolated invention, but in the rediscovery of a much older principle. Imagine a society with advanced knowledge, perhaps even a more developed form of this same technology, that was shattered by the global cataclysm. Scattered groups of survivors holding fragments of that understanding could have preserved the basic idea as a rare and specialized craft, its original purpose fading into legend. The Baghdad Battery might then be a later attempt to recreate a forgotten art, a technological echo from a world that was lost. This pattern of anomalous objects repeats elsewhere. The Coso artifact discovered in California is a geode that, when cracked open, was found to contain what appears to be a manufactured metal object resembling a modern spark plug. While skeptics offer alternative explanations, its very existence fuels the debate. These out-of-place artifacts collectively challenge our model of linear progress, where technology advances in a straight, unbroken line from primitive to complex. Instead, they hint at a cyclical pattern where knowledge is gained, lost in a great reset, and then painstakingly rediscovered millennia later. The true significance of these relics is not just what they are, but what they represent, the ghost of a technological legacy whispering from the other side of a global catastrophe. This legacy of lost engineering is not confined to small, mysterious objects, but is written on a monumental scale in the very stones our ancestors left behind. The colossal stones of Baalbek stand as a silent testament to an engineering marvel we can scarcely comprehend. In Lebanon, the foundation of the Roman temple complex rests upon a platform of limestone blocks so massive they defy belief. The largest of these, the stone of the pregnant woman, weighs an estimated 1,000 tons. That is the equivalent of 3 fully loaded jumbo jets. The precision with which these blocks were cut and fitted is equally staggering, with joints so tight a razor blade cannot slip between them. How could any ancient culture, even the Romans, have quarried such monoliths from the bedrock, moved them over a mile across rough terrain, and then lifted them into place with pinpoint accuracy? The conventional explanations of ramps, ropes, and sheer manpower begin to strain under the weight of such a task. This is not an isolated puzzle. From the Cyclopean walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, where stones are locked together in a dizzying jigsaw puzzle, to the immense foundations of Göbekli Tepe, we see the same impossible signature. The uniformity of these techniques across continents and millennia suggests a shared architectural language, a foundational knowledge of megalithic construction that seems to appear fully formed in the archaeological record. It is as if the knowledge itself was not invented, but inherited. Could the principles of moving mountains of stone have been developed by a much older civilization, one that had millennia to perfect the physics of leverage, vibration, and harmonic resonance? This would explain the sudden, inexplicable appearance of these skills in cultures that were, by our current understanding, just beginning their journey. The architectural prowess on display points to a society with a deep understanding of mathematics and material science, a culture for whom the manipulation of the earth itself was a mastered craft. While the stones themselves offer no written manual, the echoes of how they were moved may have been preserved in the most fragile of vessels, human memory, passed down through generations in the form of stories and song. These ancient stories, passed down through countless generations around campfires and in sacred ceremonies, hold memories of a different world. Indigenous oral traditions from the Americas to Australia describe ancestral landscapes with a precision that startles modern geologists. The native peoples of the Pacific Northwest, for instance, tell of a time when the coast extended far out to sea, and they recount the specific events of the ocean's slow but relentless advance, a narrative that aligns perfectly with our understanding of post-Ice Age sea level rise. Similarly, Aboriginal Australian stories detail the flooding of coastal plains that connected islands to the mainland over 10,000 years ago, describing geographic features that are now confirmed to be underwater. These are not vague allegories, they are chronicles of actual geological events, preserved with astonishing accuracy across hundreds of generations. This suggests that these cultures were not just witnessing these changes, they were encoding them into the very fabric of their identity, ensuring that the knowledge of their lost homelands would never be forgotten. The details embedded in these stories often go far beyond simple descriptions of flooding. They speak of advanced skills and forgotten technologies, of methods for construction, healing, and navigation that seem to belong to a different age. Some traditions describe building techniques that allowed for the creation of lasting stone settlements, or a deep understanding of astronomy used for long-distance ocean voyages. When we listen to these accounts, we are not hearing fiction, we are accessing a living library, an archive of human experience that predates pyramids and parchment. This indigenous wisdom does not contradict the archaeological record, it illuminates it, giving context to silent stones and submerged ruins. The sheer endurance of these narratives, surviving millennia of change and hardship, is a testament to their profound importance. They remind us that history is not only found in the ground but carried in the heart and mind. This cultural memory forms a crucial bridge, connecting the physical evidence of a lost world with the human spirit that remembered it. The story of our past, however, is written not only in legend and stone but in the very code of our own bodies, in a genetic map that traces the great migrations of our ancestors. Our own blood carries a map of the ancient world. Genetic studies are now tracing the journey of the first people into the Americas, revealing a story far more complex than a single migration across a land bridge. The analysis of modern and ancient DNA shows multiple waves of movement, with populations separating, merging, and sometimes vanishing entirely. Within this intricate genetic tapestry, scientists find puzzling anomalies, unique markers in isolated groups that do not fit the established models. These could be the faint, biological echoes of encounters with other, now vanished peoples, groups whose own distinct lineages were lost in the upheavals of a changing world. If a sophisticated culture did exist before the Great Climate Shift, its people would not have simply disappeared without a trace. Their legacy would be woven into the DNA of their descendants, a subtle signature waiting to be read by the right tools. This biological timeline provides a crucial framework, a calendar written in our cells that can be cross-referenced with the tools found at an archaeological dig or the charcoal from an ancient hearth. When a genetic date for a population's arrival aligns with the submerged ruins of a coastal settlement, the picture becomes clearer and far more compelling. Yet, as we attempt to integrate these disparate lines of evidence, we must confront a wall of scientific skepticism. The very idea of a lost, advanced civilization challenges the foundational principles of archaeology and history, fields built on a model of linear, gradual progress. Proposing a cycle of rise and catastrophic fall, of knowledge gained and then lost, can be met with deep institutional resistance. This skepticism is not born of stubbornness, but of a necessary commitment to rigorous proof. The standard of evidence for rewriting human history is, and should be, extraordinarily high. The challenge, then, is to build a case so robust, with so many intersecting lines of inquiry from geology, genetics, and archaeology, that it becomes impossible to ignore. The stones, the stories, and the very code of life are beginning to tell a unified story, one that asks us to look at our past with fresh eyes and the courage to question what we think we know. This natural tension between discovery and doubt is the engine of scientific progress. Mainstream archaeology, with its rigorous methodology, rightly demands a high standard of proof for any claim that could overturn established timelines. The principle of Occam's razor is frequently invoked, suggesting that the simplest explanation, the one requiring the fewest assumptions, is usually the correct one. From this perspective, attributing Göbekli Tepe to a previously unknown, highly advanced culture is a complex assumption. It is simpler to interpret it as an astonishing, but ultimately local, achievement of hunter-gatherers. This foundational skepticism is not born of close-mindedness, but of a vital disciplinary integrity. It acts as a filter, separating compelling patterns from mere coincidence. We see this process at work in the initial reactions to Göbekli Tepe itself, where the dating was repeatedly verified because the implications were so revolutionary. This healthy scrutiny forced a re-examination of what we thought was possible for prehistoric peoples, ultimately enriching our understanding. Engaging with these skeptical viewpoints is not a barrier to the truth, but a pathway to it. It compels researchers to cross-reference their findings, to seek multiple lines of evidence from genetics, geology, and climatology. A theory that can withstand this level of critical assault becomes far more robust. The goal is not to win an argument, but to build a case so solid with such interlocking evidence that it reshapes the paradigm. This process ensures that our quest is grounded not in wishful thinking, but in verifiable reality. It is through this very clash of ideas that we refine our understanding of the past. One of the most powerful ideas to emerge from this rigorous debate is the concept of catastrophism, a framework that challenges the long-held belief that geological and climatic change is always slow and gradual. The ground beneath our feet holds two competing stories about our planet's past. For much of modern geology, the dominant view has been uniformitarianism, the principle that the present is the key to the past. This idea suggests that the slow, steady processes we observe today, like erosion or sediment deposition, are entirely responsible for shaping Earth's landscape over immense stretches of time. It is a story of gradual change, a patient and predictable world. Yet, a growing body of evidence challenges this peaceful narrative, reviving an older idea known as catastrophism. This perspective argues that our planet's history has been punctuated by sudden, violent events, from asteroid impacts to colossal floods, that can reshape continents in a geological instant. This is not a story of patient erosion, but of planetary revolution. The debate between these two views is not merely academic, it is the very framework through which we interpret the fate of early human societies. If Earth's history is exclusively gradual, then the slow, steady march of cultural progress we learn about makes sense. But if catastrophes are a genuine driving force, then the entire timeline of human civilization becomes vulnerable to sudden and dramatic reset. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis sits at the heart of this debate. This provocative theory proposes that around 12,800 years ago, a fragmented comet struck Earth's atmosphere, exploding in a series of fireballs that rained devastation across at least 4 continents. Evidence for this event includes a thin, dark layer in the soil from that era, rich in rare elements like iridium and nanodiamonds, materials typically associated with extraterrestrial impacts. The immediate consequences would have been apocalyptic, generating immense wildfires, triggering a nuclear winter effect, and potentially destabilizing the remaining ice sheets. This single, terrible day could have been the trigger for the violent climate swings of the Younger Dryas, the very event that would have made life impossible for any established coastal civilization. Their world would not have ended with a slow rise of water, but in a firestorm from the sky, followed by a rapid descent into ice. This catastrophist viewpoint fundamentally recontextualizes the search for lost cultures. It means that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It is the expected result of a global-scale eradication event. The ruins we do find, like Göbekli Tepe, may not be the beginnings of something, but the stubborn remnants of a world that somehow survived. They are the scattered pieces of a puzzle that was violently shattered. Embracing this possibility does not mean abandoning scientific rigor. Rather, it opens up entirely new avenues for investigation, asking us to look for clues in the scars on the planet itself. From this theoretical framework, we must turn to the practical methods for uncovering these lost worlds. The ocean floor is the world's largest museum, its exhibits sealed under layers of water and time. With revolutionary advances in sonar mapping and remote sensing, underwater archaeologists are no longer just divers, they are explorers charting a lost geography. They scan the vast continental shelves, areas that were dry, fertile land during the last ice age, searching for the faint outlines of river valleys, hills, and coastlines that vanished beneath the waves. This is not guesswork, it is the systematic mapping of a drowned world. Discoveries like the submerged structures off the coast of India or the remarkably preserved settlements found deep in the Black Sea offer tangible proof. These sites were not always underwater, They were once thriving landscapes where people lived, hunted, and built their communities. The very seas that erased them have also acted as a perfect preservative. Layers of silt and sediment have gently covered and protected these remains, potentially safeguarding organic materials like wood, tools, and even the faint imprints of structures in a way that erosion on land rarely allows. This makes the systematic exploration of these submerged landscapes absolutely critical to our search. Each robotic submersible dive and each sonar survey is a step into a forgotten continent. The potential is staggering. A single discovery in these silent depths could provide the undeniable evidence of a sophisticated society that thrived before the ice melted. This field represents the final frontier in historical research, a place where the next dive could literally rewrite the first chapters of our story. The oceans guard their secrets well, but they also hold a historical record that land-based archaeology can never access. This emerging evidence of a lost world naturally leads us to a profound question. How did the ideas and symbols of these ancient peoples spread so far and wide? The pyramids of Egypt and the steppe temples of Mesoamerica speak a silent, shared language. Though separated by an ocean, these monumental structures echo the same architectural principles, the same obsession with celestial alignment, and the same staggering ambition. This is not an isolated parallel. The concept of a zodiac, a celestial belt divided into symbolic constellations, appears in both Babylonian and Mesoamerican astronomy, two cultures that supposedly developed in complete isolation. How could such specific and complex ideas emerge independently, again and again, unless they were drawing from a common, ancient well of knowledge? This pattern points toward a process known as cultural diffusion, the spread of ideas and technologies through trade, migration, or shared ancestry. It challenges the long-held theory of independent invention, which argues that each civilization developed its core achievements in a vacuum. The evidence suggests a different story, one where foundational knowledge was not invented multiple times, but was instead carried across the globe. Imagine a vast, interconnected network of pre-Ice Age peoples. They would have shared more than just goods. They would have exchanged architectural blueprints, astronomical data, and spiritual concepts. This would explain the remarkable speed with which complex societies seemed to sprout up around the world after the climate stabilized. It was not a series of miraculous births, but a widespread renaissance, a reawakening of skills and beliefs that had been preserved by scattered survivor communities. The sudden appearance of agriculture, writing, and monument building across different continents begins to look less like coincidence and more like recovery. By tracing these shared cultural threads, we are not just comparing pyramids, we are attempting to reconstruct the ghost of a global network. This interconnectedness hints at a civilization of unprecedented scope, a world that was culturally and technologically unified before it was fragmented by cataclysm. The philosophical implications of this revised history are profound. It suggests that human progress is not a straight, upward line, but a cycle of rise and fall. Our own modern civilization, for all its achievements, may not be the first to reach such heights, but merely the latest in a long series of ascents. This perspective instills a deep sense of humility, reminding us that our place at the pinnacle of history is not guaranteed. The stones and stories left behind by our ancestors are not just relics, they are warnings and invitations, urging us to learn from the past so that we might build a future that endures. This possibility shatters the comforting narrative of a straight, upward climb from primitive to advanced. Our modern world is built upon the assumption of continuous progress, a story where each generation stands on the shoulders of the last, forever reaching higher. But what if history is not a line, but a spiral, or even a series of waves? the evidence we have explored suggests that societies can ascend to remarkable levels of complexity, only to be undone by forces beyond their control. This is not a story of failure, but a testament to both the brilliance of human ingenuity and our profound vulnerability to a volatile planet. The fall of such a culture would not erase the knowledge entirely, but shatter it into fragments, leaving later generations to painstakingly rediscover principles that were once commonplace. This cyclical view of history carries a powerful and urgent lesson for our own time. We live in an era of undeniable environmental stress, facing climate shifts that, while different in origin, echo the planetary upheavals of the past. The story of a lost civilization is a stark reminder that no society, regardless of its technological achievements, is immune to the forces of nature. This is not a prophecy of doom, but a call to wisdom. It invites us to look at our own global civilization and ask, what knowledge are we preserving for the future, and what practices are we engaging in that might make us more resilient? The drive to build and create is a fundamental part of the human spirit, but this new perspective asks us to pair that ambition with a deeper sense of stewardship. Perhaps the greatest legacy of these forgotten ancestors is not a specific technology, but a philosophical one, the understanding that true progress is measured not just by what we can build, but by what we can sustain. This profound shift in perspective, from a linear to a cyclical understanding of time, empowers us to learn from the entire span of the human story. It allows us to see the echoes of the past not as mere curiosities, but as guideposts. The next step in our journey is to weave all these disparate threads of evidence into a single, cohesive tapestry, a unified theory of a lost world that can withstand the scrutiny of science and the imagination. Each piece of evidence is a single thread, but when woven together, they form a tapestry of incredible possibility. The architectural marvels of Göbekli Tepe and Baalbek suggest a society with profound engineering knowledge, a mastery of stone that seems to appear fully formed. The geological record of the Younger Dryas provides the cataclysmic backdrop, a planetary event capable of erasing coastlines and destabilizing global climates. Our own genetic history hints at forgotten migrations and encounters with lost populations, while the universal flood myths echo the shared trauma of those who survived the rising waters. Even the silent language of ancient art and the precise alignments of megalithic sites point toward a sophisticated, shared understanding of the cosmos. Individually, any one of these clues could be an anomaly. Together, they build a coherent, if still emerging, theory. This theory proposes that before the great ice receded, human societies had already achieved a level of cultural and technological complexity. They likely possessed urban planning, as suggested by the submerged structures of Dwarka. They practiced advanced astronomy, evidenced by the global alignments of stone circles. They may have even understood principles of energy and mechanics, hinted at by artifacts like the Baghdad Battery. This was not necessarily a single, global empire, but perhaps a network of interconnected cultures, a worldwide web of the ancient world, sharing ideas and innovations. Their world was not lost slowly but suddenly in the geological chaos that ended the last ice age. The survivors, scattered and struggling, carried fragments of this knowledge with them. The so-called dawn of civilization, with its sudden emergence of farming, writing, and cities, may not have been a beginning at all, but a renaissance, a painful and gradual rediscovery of what had been known millennia before. This synthesis does not ask us to discard science, but to expand it, to embrace an interdisciplinary approach where geology informs archaeology and genetics illuminates mythology. The cumulative weight of these intersecting lines of inquiry is becoming too heavy to ignore. It creates a compelling case that our past is far deeper and more mysterious than our history books have ever admitted. As we stand at this crossroads of discovery, one can only wonder what future technologies might reveal, what secrets still lie buried beneath the ocean floor or locked within the untranslated symbols of the world's oldest caves. The search has only just begun, and the next great find could be just one excavation away. The tools of discovery are advancing at a breathtaking pace. Where archaeologists once relied on shovels and brushes, they now wield lasers and genetic sequencers. LiDAR technology, for instance, uses airborne lasers to digitally strip away dense jungle canopy, revealing the ghostly footprints of ancient cities hidden for millennia beneath the vegetation. In Cambodia, this method has exposed vast, sprawling urban networks around Angkor Wat that rewrite our understanding of the Khmer Empire. This same technology, applied to other overgrown regions or even shallow coastal waters, could easily uncover the foundations of settlements from a much earlier time. Meanwhile, deep-sea robotics are venturing into the abyssal plains, the very continental shelves that were dry land during the last ice age. These robotic explorers are no longer just capturing video. They are equipped with sophisticated sensors that can detect unnatural shapes buried under layers of sediment, potentially locating the sunken heart of a lost civilization. The evidence we seek may not be a single dramatic ruin, but a pattern, a grid of foundations and canals revealed by a submersible scan. Alongside these macroscopic tools, the microscopic world offers another key. Advanced DNA analysis is now so sensitive it can trace population movements and interactions from mere traces of genetic material in soil. By analyzing sediment from caves or from the layers beneath submerged sites, scientists could identify the genetic signature of a people who lived there over 12,000 years ago, confirming their presence even if all their tools and structures have long since dissolved. The ongoing investigation at Gunung Padang in Indonesia is a powerful preview of this future. There, researchers are finding that what was once thought to be a natural hill is actually a massive, multi-layered pyramid, with the deepest construction phases potentially dating back over 20,000 years. Each of these technological leaps brings us closer to a moment of profound clarity. The speculation of today could become the established fact of tomorrow, all because we have finally developed the eyes to see what has been there all along. Of course, as this field expands, it is also vital to clear away the common misunderstandings that often surround it. The most captivating mysteries often attract the wildest speculations. In our search for lost civilizations, we must carefully navigate the line between open-minded inquiry and unsubstantiated fantasy. Sensational claims of ancient aliens or supernatural forces building the pyramids, for instance, completely disregard the mountains of archaeological proof we already have. We see the quarry marks, the worker settlements, the trial passages, all testifying to the sheer human ingenuity and immense effort behind these structures. To hand these achievements over to extraterrestrial architects is to ignore the true story of our ancestors' remarkable capabilities. This is where a critical mindset becomes our most valuable tool. Relying on peer-reviewed studies and verifiable empirical data is not about closing doors. It is about ensuring the door we walk through leads to a real discovery, not a dead end. When we ground our investigation in factual evidence, we honor the genuine mystery and preserve the integrity of the search. The goal is not to prove a predetermined idea, but to follow the evidence wherever it may lead, no matter how surprising the destination. This disciplined approach allows us to separate the profound from the merely provocative, building a case that can withstand the scrutiny of science and time. As this journey draws to a close, its true impact becomes deeply personal. inviting us to reconsider our own place in the vast story of humanity. This realization redefines our relationship with the past, transforming it from a simple timeline into a profound mystery. To consider that entire chapters of the human story may be missing is both humbling and exhilarating. The standard narrative of a steady climb from primitive to advanced suddenly feels incomplete, replaced by a more dramatic and cyclical story of rise, fall, and resilience. This expanded view does not diminish our modern achievements, but instead places them within a much grander context. We are not the first people to build, to explore, or to seek meaning in the stars. We are simply the latest in a long line of dreamers and survivors. This connection to our ancient ancestors is palpable, a thread of shared curiosity and ingenuity that stretches back across millennia. They, too, faced immense challenges from climatic chaos to rising seas, and their legacy, whether in buried temples or persistent myths, is a testament to their endurance. Understanding their potential journey empowers us to see our own civilization not as an inevitable pinnacle, but as a precious chapter in an ongoing saga. It invites a deeper curiosity about the world, urging us to look at a simple stone circle or an old map not as a final answer, but as a question waiting to be asked. This knowledge fosters a critical mindset, teaching us to question established narratives and to embrace the wonder of not knowing. Ultimately, it enriches our understanding of what it means to be human, reminding us that our capacity for innovation is matched only by our profound ability to rebuild, to remember, and to carry fragments of wisdom through the ages. All of these threads, from the submerged stones to the celestial maps, weave together into a single, powerful insight. This search for our origins is far more than an academic exercise. It is a profound quest to reclaim entire chapters of our shared human heritage, stories of ingenuity and resilience written not in books, but in submerged stones and celestial myths. The evidence we have explored, from the impossible engineering of Göbekli Tepe to the drowned city of Dwarka, from the genetic whispers in our blood to the universal echo of a great flood, forms a compelling mosaic. Each piece on its own might be dismissed as an anomaly, yet together they sketch the Chinese letter of a forgotten world, a time when human societies achieved remarkable sophistication long before our established timelines suggest they could. This was not necessarily a single global empire, but perhaps a network of cultures flourishing against the backdrop of a very different planet, only to see their world remade by climatic chaos. While countless questions remain unanswered and the scientific debate is far from settled, the very act of asking these questions has already changed us. It has expanded our horizons, challenging the rigid boundaries of what we thought was possible in the deep past. It reminds us that history is not a static collection of facts carved in stone, but a living, breathing story we are only just beginning to uncover. The greatest discoveries often lie just beyond the edge of the map. So, what do you think? Did a lost chapter of human history sink beneath the waves? Share your thoughts and continue the exploration, because the most thrilling mysteries are always the ones we have yet to solve.